Hello and welcome back to Out of Spec Testing. I am back here at our favorite Mercedes Alpitronic HYC 400s here in Northern Colorado, which means it's test time, specifically 10% challenge time. That is our road trip simulation series where we test as many vehicles as possible at 80 miles an hour on the highway to see how far you can go on a 15-minute DC fast charge. Now, a few stipulations, I'll explain the entire testing procedure. We have climate control running during charging, while also during driving. We have GPS verified 80 miles an hour, and we see how much energy we take in. We count the handshake time, we count how many kilowatt hours are delivered. It's a very thorough test, and it's a fun way to pit cars against each other to see, well, how well do they road trip? This big habanero orange thing is the Silverado EV Trail Boss with 200 plus kilowatt hour battery pack. I've actually recently tested the Escalade IQ with the same battery, but this is an updated 2026 model year. So, possible tweaks to the battery, tweaks to the motors. There's a lot of things changed with 2026, including the disappearance of the RST trim for the Silverado EV. So this is now kind of top spec, if you will, being the Trail Boss with the max battery pack. That is again over 200 kilowatt hours. GM says 205. We've actually pulled around 215-ish on these things. Peak charging speed advertised at 350 kilowatts. We've actually seen a bit higher. I've personally seen about 367 or so. So we'll see what we pull today. I pulled in here with 11% stated charge with a fully preconditioned battery pack. It is about 75 degrees ambient. So we're kind of giving it the best benefit of the doubt here because I'm pulling in with a bit cooler temperatures. I mean, medium, not really cold or cool by any means. But once we're done charging, it'll be warmed up, and then today's gonna be a hot day. So we'll be doing the 10% challenge with some decent heat outside, which should give the battery pack as much distance as possible. However, these things have been prone to basically overheating themselves during charging sessions, especially while climate control is enabled. It's because there's a shared coolant loop between the climate control system on the cabin side, but also on the coolant of the battery. So what we've seen with that is when you run climate control while charging, we've seen charging speeds dip dramatically and really hurt itself. So we've seen much better charging speeds. I did a whole video over in the Out of Spec Bits channel on my experiences charging the Escalade IQ with and without climate control, plugging at 10%. It was really fascinating to see the difference there and how much more energy I was able to deliver with climate control turned off. But again, in this test, we run it with climate on because we simulate, well, people might be going to a charging stop on a road trip and sit in the truck, which is a comfortable place to be, in the front seats, and then having climate control on because what if it is a hot day? A lot of folks in the forums and stuff have road tripped Escalade IQs, Silverados, etc., and have complained about climate control affecting charging in the summer heat. This truck may have a newer update, not really sure. It is up to date as of what the truck says. So maybe we'll see a better performance today, but there's only one way to find out, and that's, well, testing it. So like I said, pulled in here with just 11%. We are now running climate control to drain the last bit of battery, and as soon as it hits 10%, we will then plug in and see what it rips up to. But really quick tour of the truck. This is $93,000, which is a lot of money, but that's about 70 grand less than the Escalade IQ we were just testing, which had the same battery motor situation. So I guess it's a bargain if you look at it that way. This paint color is really cool. I like the Trail Boss quite a bit. Basically, it gives you a 2-inch lift, 18-inch wheels, big 35-inch tires, red tow hooks. There's a couple colors you can choose from, but I'm partial to this habanero. Colton thinks the desert tan hearing aid beige color would be cool. I don't disagree. I think it'd be pretty sweet. But I love the Silverado EV, man. This thing looks sick. It's got the avalanche sails here, which surprisingly, a lot of people are polarized on whether they like it or don't like it. It's got a mid-gate, so you can pull the window out and fold the back down, so you can have like 9+ feet of internal storage, maybe 11 something, 12 feet with the tailgate down. It's got the multi-gate, boom, boom, super cool. And then this folds down to become a step, so you can actually access the bed much easier. You have the worst speakers I've ever heard in my life with this, I forget how much this option is, but it's kind of expensive getting this multi-gate thing. And yeah, other videos we've done, we did a build quality analysis on out of spec detailing. We also did a review, which may come up soon or maybe is already out, just explaining how I think this is the Silverado EV trim to get. You even have a huge frunk up here. So it's a very usable truck, very road trip friendly truck. Especially for 2 passengers, I'd say the front is fairly comfortable for the 2 occupants. The back, bit compromised. Very spacious, looks nice. The optional panoramic glass roof is nice, but these seats are thin, they're not very comfortable, and I think they're compromised because of the midgate situation. This all folds up, you know, this folds up here, this seat folds down somehow. There we go. So that folds down, the seats all fold down, everything folds away. Oh, there's the Bose subwoofer, by the way. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I would have preferred having an optional midgate, you know, give people the option if they want all that crazy storage, but for the people who will never use it, give them nicer back seats, maybe even air-conditioned back seats, storage space under here, more comfy space to be. That would have been cool, but hey, it's a Chevy, it's a functional work truck. In fact, they make a work truck version. We are hopefully almost tipping down to 10 kilowatts, or sorry, 10%. Oh, the Climate's only running 3 kilowatts right now, and it's basically maxed out, which is kind of interesting. The Escalade pulled a lot more energy when it was running climate control. Dang, so I plugged my MacBook into charge and also upped the climate control to max fan speed, and we are pulling 7 kilowatts. That's crazy. Hopefully it dips over in just a second, but it is such a huge battery, so each percentage is like a lot. I mean, I pulled in here with like, I thought low 11, but maybe it was like mid 11. Either way, with 7 kilowatts, we should see it dip here in just a second. Then we can finally plug in, count the handshake time, and also the 15 minutes of charging time. By the way, these Alpitronics are sweet. They're relatively new. They're up here in North Glen or Thornton or wherever I am. And they also have NACS cables now. Amphenol cables, I think both sides here. Yeah, Amphenol. And it says coming soon. So I wonder if they're gonna have each side be NACS and CCS. That would be kind of cool. Still split by 2, but that way you could have, you know, 2 cars charging at the same time, and each car could have NACS or CCS, which would be nice. Right now, each one has one or the other, and then these 2 units down here are dedicated. They only have 1 cable, which is why I picked this one specifically, this one being CCS. And this truck being a 2026 model year and still only having CCS. No NACS behind this barn door of a charge port. So, and this thing too. Never been a fan of this. I don't know why people defend it. Just make a flap that's nice. Finally hit 10% and we're finally charging. Well, connecting. We're doing the handshake timer now. And come on, what are we at? Definitely not the 7 seconds you'd see at a Tesla, that's for sure. Session aborted. Connector damaged. It went on to say connector failed, and then it said charge point unavailable, but after a few restarts, I think we're back in business. There we go. So 27-second handshake. And conveniently, this is an exact 15-minute timer, so I don't have to count that myself. But we'll see what we actually ramp up to and how well it goes. Okay, a couple glitches, but nothing too crazy. And to remind you, the climate is set to on, the truck is set to stay on. 70 degrees, I'm using the most eco-friendly climate setting. We keep it between 68 and 72, just depending on the vehicle. They all kind of cool a bit differently. This being a GM, I may have to put it up to 72 because their AC is intense. But we'll see what we actually get here. So, active session, select CCS, 355. We're ramping up nicely. Some stats, some comparative stats, is this exact same test with the Escalade IQ. We delivered 64 kilowatt hours in 15 minutes. However, in another charge immediately after without climate control on, I did 84 kilowatt hours, a huge difference. So we're gonna see if this actually holds peak power longer this time, or if it drops off precipitously once again as soon as the battery starts getting warm. I'm guessing the truck is like, oh crap, I gotta reallocate my resources to cool the cabin instead of the battery. Maybe that'll be a little different now. I'm not really sure. It seems like an engineering flaw in my opinion, not having enough capability to keep both climate in the cabin and battery cool. Oh man, I thought they had maybe fixed this. On these stations where there's only one plug, I don't see why there's any reason why this screen doesn't stay up the entire time. There's no reason for it to go back to the home screen to say choose a connector because, well, there's only one connector. I think people would like to see this. I like seeing all of it. It'd be, well, I don't know. Do you think they should cycle between screens or just let people manually pick? I'm guessing most people don't care about this one, but I sure do. Ripping at nearly 500 amps here. Already done 16 kilowatt hours, and it's only been not much time, 3 minutes exactly to do 16 kilowatt hours. And yeah, nice looking flat line there. We'll see how long this holds. I'm not keeping my hopes up. I mean, it may be too early to say, but I don't think we were this well along at only 5 minutes, still doing 365 kilowatts at 23%. Once again, Chevy claims this truck will do 350 kilowatts. So they're very conservative on their numbers as far as I can tell. I'm not sure what charger that's saying. Maybe they're saying, oh, Electrify America 350 is the only one people can go to. But even at 350 rated kilowatt chargers at Electrify America, we've seen higher than 350. It's not exactly the most accurate label. Labels are hard. In fact, if you use AI, ChatGPT or something to look up the max charging speed for a Hyundai Ioniq 5, it'll probably say 350 kilowatts because a number of journalist outlets have said they charge at 350 kilowatts, which I partially blame Hyundai and Ioniq for because they basically say that it'll do 10 to 80 when plugged into a 350 kilowatt charging station. So just nuances with the verbiage. I digress. I don't think I mentioned it before, but this truck with the max battery pack has an EPA estimate of 478 miles of range, which is wild. Even the LT trim with the max battery pack does 478, which is interesting because that one is on, well, 2-inch lower suspension, which would affect aerodynamics, but also bigger wheels, which usually is a negative impact, but they're aerodynamic wheels, which I guess offsets everything. So hopefully at some point we can do a Trail Boss and LT trim side by side with an efficiency test, because I think that'd be really interesting to see if one of them is lying. Like basically, how did they actually do the EPA calculations? The work truck, by the way, 493 miles EPA, which is insanely great. All right, we've come slightly off peak finally at 29%, which is crazy. I'm guessing we're gonna for sure pass the Escalade IQ because I think it has dropped a lot further by this point. Yeah, so, dang it, back, here we go. The Escalade IQ had only gotten up to 37%. Here we are encroaching on that with only 8 minutes into the charging session. Oh man, I think I'm gonna be in for a long drive. This is gonna be rough. All right, just check the truck. We have just passed where we were with the Escalade IQ. That only made it to 37%. We're at 38, 39 now, still at 240 kilowatts. Absolutely ripping. The Escalade IQ was like below 200, I think, like maybe 150s at 38 because the climate control had destroyed it. And we also passed the energy there. So we still have about 3.5 minutes left of charging. We'll see how far we get. 3, 2, 1, 15 minutes. Those are the stats. Holy cow, we definitely got more energy than the Escalade IQ did, that's for sure. Boom. 75 kilowatt hours, over 10 kilowatt hours more than the Escalade IQ did, and 44% versus 37%. Time to go run this thing down and see how far we go, but I think it'll definitely be more than 100 miles. We are pulling out, got the trip reset here, which is good. So we'll see what our efficiency is. But yeah, like I said, for reference, Escalade IQ did 100 miles on the nose. I think we'll beat that in this truck, no problem. So I'm gonna go hit the highway, 80 miles an hour constant, turn around roughly halfway through the energy I gained, which was 34% divided by 2, 17% in. Then I'll route back to the charger so the truck preconditions for the next charge. That's how we do it. I've actually been on the road for a while, however I had to take a meeting, so we are still here cruising at 81 indicated, which is GPS verified 80 miles an hour on a nice free-flowing highway, almost no traffic. I've had to jump down the speed maybe once to pass a semi while following a semi, otherwise flawless. Conditions are also flawless. No wind. We have 88 degrees ambient, so we finished charging with about 77 degrees, and it's climbed quite a bit. So it is going to be a hot day. I'm not sure how the heat will affect this test, but here we are doing an automatic lane change. We've got Super Cruise, which is really a pretty great system, better than ever because it now has lane centering, even when you don't have a pre-mapped road for Super Cruise. So hands-free driver assistance with automatic lane changes with Super Cruise. When you run out of pre-mapped road, then it'll suddenly go back to just normal hands-on, but lane centering, which is huge. GM products didn't used to have that. Big thumbs up for me. That's a 2026 model year across the board change, which I'm thrilled about. And otherwise, this thing is a fantastic cruiser. This being the Trail Boss, which also extends to the LT and the work truck. Spring suspension, no air suspension, I think rides better. Having these big, thicker tires soaks up some of the small bumps much better. So I'm a big fan of how this truck handles overall. You know, the RST model looked cool with the 24s, and the air suspension was functional in many ways, but I think didn't ride super well. Not everyone was like that thrilled with it. So I'm pleased to announce this thing is amazing. Actually, I'd say I'd give the Trail Box ledge over the LT. Oh, it says take control. Hands-free driving unavailable. Sensors can't see lane lines. Now it's back to hopefully just normal lane centering, possibly. Let's see here. Yeah, so it's not a seamless handoff, by the way. I'm going to mention this at a hogback challenge that me and Scott are going to film later. But when it goes from Super Cruise to just hands-on lane centering, the truck loses acceleration. It's like the accelerator turns off, and then it remembers it's still in cruise control and turns back on again, which is a little funky to me. So it's not a seamless transition, but it is a transition nonetheless. It's one that doesn't require driver input other than putting your hands on the wheel. So I'll accept it. It's still better than what it was before. But yeah, like I was saying, this thing rides great. I think the coil suspension, especially in Trail Boss with the lift kit, the 2-inch lift, makes for a fantastic riding 10-inch of ground clearance beast. You can take on road trips, on trails. You can tow with this thing. I mean, it's truly an all-around vehicle. All right, we are jumping off the highway here to do a turnaround. We've exhausted exactly half of our percentage regained. We're also going to put the charger back into the route, and that way, if there's any preconditioning the battery wants to do, it will do it. So, turning back around and then jump back on the highway, back up to 81 indicated, 80 GPS. Very simple procedure, but effective. We've so far done 53.6 miles, 1.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Definitely less efficient than the Escalade IQ, which isn't surprising given the shape. That is a bit more of a coupe-like, still huge, useful SUV. This is a truck, which naturally has just a bit worse aerodynamics. But this has a tonneau cover, which is optional, which will help us slightly over the Trail Boss without the tonneau cover. And so we'll see if that makes much of a difference going back. We do this in a loop style so that we counteract any elevation we may have gained or lost. And if there was any wind, which again, 3-mile-an-hour wind, this will essentially counteract the wind as well. Other than where it's a crosswind, but again, 3 miles an hour wind, that's not going to have much of an effect. So, easy jump back onto the highway. We will retrace our steps and see what we get as we get back to the charger. We'll finish the test as soon as we hit 10% on the highway at highway speed, and we'll document our mileage and efficiency. And yeah, definitely better than it would have been on, say, a 2025 Silverado EV, I'm guessing, but we'll have to see. Final stats will show the truth. Still about 2 miles away. Hit 10% at 111 miles. So that is 11 miles more than the Escalade IQ, which is not amazing. Like, this is definitely a worse efficiency run for sure. I think that one was like 1.7, 1.8 miles per kilowatt hour. I'll have to double check the math, but I know that car did 100 miles on 64 kilowatt hours delivered. This one did 111 miles on 74 kilowatt hours delivered. So not quite the same efficiency, but still a totally decent and better than it would have been on the original charging performance. Still a decent outcome. So I'm going to go back, plug into the charger, give my final thoughts, and also, just out of curiosity, do a 15-minute charge at 10% with no climate running, see how much of a difference that makes. Still at 10%, so it should be a close, not fully scientific, but a close representation of another 15-minute charge at 10%. The turn signal, so a lot of things about this car are improved over the last couple model years after its introduction. The turn signal still skips a beat every once in a while. No idea why that's hard to implement, a proper, perfectly synchronized turn signal. Maybe leave it to the Germans, I guess. But everything else, I mean, it's really quite good. But another complaint I have is there's only one screen that shows state of charge. Every other driver display option shows you miles remaining, but nothing, it's a guessometer. Nothing says state of charge. So for example, I just drove 80 miles an hour for like an hour and a half. So it thinks 36 miles per 10%. So that would mean a full charge would be like 370 something miles. But if I were to then drive around the city, I'd get probably 500 miles. So it's like the guessometer's not reliable. I will die on this hill. Companies should be giving us state of charge on every display. Doesn't matter. Like, don't make it weirdly displayed dependent. Like, just give it to us everywhere. Do not understand. All right, we've plugged back in, and I don't think it's ramping up as high as it used to, even with AC off. So we may not see, the screen again. We may not see the peak that we originally saw. Very interesting. It's fully preconditioned as much as it wanted to be. So I'll see what it does after 15 minutes, but hey, 10% challenge, that stuff's all that matters. And that absolutely, I'd say, rocked, relatively speaking. All right, that's getting better. Now I will say my colleagues here at this here company, Albitronic Mercedes, have said they've seen like 380 plus kilowatts from these batteries. So I'm not sure why I've never seen that, but hey, maybe it's from being plugged in at a different time. I don't know. As we do climb state of charge, we should see pack voltage get up. Maybe it's possible that it could peak better in like the lower mid section of the pack. Not really sure. I'll still take 360 kilowatts. That's absolutely epic. Before we saw the peak dip at 29%, we're still holding strong. Actually, it dipped before 29% before. Now it's dipping right around 29%. Oh, it is dipping a little bit. Now at 30%. So just a hair different, but so far not the craziest difference. This of course may change as we get to another 7 or 8 minutes or so until we finish the 15-minute stretch. But yeah, it's not dipping as bad, but it still is dipping a little bit. Only time will tell to see how much we actually drop. Really cool Volvo EX90, by the way. I am such a fan of that car. All right, just hit 15 minutes, 47%, still 266 kilowatts. That is a difference, and 84 kilowatt hours. So the exact same charging that I saw with the Escalade IQ without climate control. So what I've learned is climate control being on has made a huge difference. In fact, I'm going to do a whole new video on the Out of Spec Bits channel focusing on that, but that's it. 10% challenge, not as affected as before with climate control, still affected a little bit, but that's kind of expected. That's just how, maybe how GMs are engineered to work. You're going to have some issues with climate. It's not going to pull all the excess power from the charger. It's still going to affect probably the cooling of the battery because of the shared coolant loop system. That's my understanding anyways. Maybe we can get an engineer on here to discuss further. But thanks for watching. 111 miles, pretty decent. 74 kilowatt hours, that's really a lot of energy. So not too bad, GM. It's just like 1.6 miles per kilowatt hour. That's not that efficient. But then again, 9,000 pounds rolling down the highway. What else can you expect? Thanks for watching.